I've made my general dislike of the Linux Foundation quite clear. Frankly, I don't think they should even be using that name anymore. Basically, everything they do is only tangentially related to Linux. But alas, I don't want to start up the drama once again. Instead, let's talk a little bit about the world of web browsers, in particular, the Chromium browser. Linux Foundation announces the launch of supporters of Chromium-based browsers, which kind of sounds like a browser support group, a browser fan group, right? Like, we're the supporters of the local sports ball team. We're the supporters of Chromium. But in actuality, it's a lot more important than that. This initiative aims to fund open development and enhance projects within the Chromium ecosystem, ensuring broad support and sustainability for open source contributions that will drive technological advancement. The supporters of Chromium-based browsers will provide a neutral space where industry leaders, academia, developers, and the broader open source community can work together to support projects within the Chromium ecosystem. By fostering collaboration, the initiative aims to remove barriers to innovation, expand adoption. We definitely need that from Chromium. Yep, absolutely. And ensure that projects within the Chromium ecosystem receive the resources they need to thrive. The Chromium projects themselves will remain under current existing governance structures, which means owned by Google, basically entirely, while just the new supporters of Chromium-based browsers will be housed under the Linux Foundation. However, we'll see how this part goes here depending on some stuff I talk about a bit later in the video. Now, being part of the Linux Foundation is not just some randos involved, it's not just like Bill and Jeff down the street. Actual companies that have a lot of money are involved in this project. Several leading organizations have already pledged their support for the initiative, including Google, obviously Google, because you wouldn't really be able to do anything with Chromium without Google being in support, Meta, Microsoft, and Opera. And here we have some quotes from members of the organization. For some reason, not Meta. I don't really know why. Firstly, let's start with Chrome. With the incredible support of the Linux Foundation, we believe the supporters of Chromium-based browsers is an important opportunity to create a sustainable platform to support industry leaders, academia, developers, and the broader open source community in the continued development and innovation of the Chromium ecosystem. Here is someone from Microsoft Edge. Microsoft is pleased to join this initiative, which will help drive collaboration within the Chromium ecosystem. This initiative aligns with our commitment to the web platform through meaningful and positive contributions, engagement in collaborative engineering, and partnerships with the community to achieve the best outcome for everyone using the web. Also known as, we can outsource our development and don't have to pay for other people to work on the browser. Here we have Opera. As one of the major browsers contributing to the Chromium project, Opera is pleased to join the supporters of the Chromium-based browsers and to lend our efforts towards the development of the open source ecosystem. We look forward to collaborating with members of the project to foster this growth and to keep building innovative and compelling products for all users. But obviously, even though those are the only members, the Chromium ecosystem is much larger than that. All of these various browsers here, some of which you've probably heard of, like Vivaldi, or obviously Edge. Some you probably haven't heard of, like I didn't know Avast had a browser. Apparently they do. Also, I didn't know Samsung Internet was based on Chromium. But that's cool. But there are also things where even if you don't use the Chromium browser directly or something based on it, a lot of the tools you use do make use of it in some way or another, like the Chromium Embedded Framework, Electron, and the Qt Web Engine are all part of the Chromium project, or based on the Chromium browser. So no matter what you do, you are never escaping Chromium. It's never gonna happen. Now, Chromium also has their own blog on the matter, announcing supporters of Chromium-based browsers. In 2024, Google made over 100,000 commits to Chromium, accounting for 94% of contributions. Yes, the graph looks like this. While we have no intention of reducing this investment, we continue to welcome others stepping up to invest more. Oh, I'm sure you do. Again, companies love it when other companies get involved in their open source project because they like this line to be, more like up here. They still want to be the ones in control, but, have someone else doing a bit more of the work. Google also continues to invest heavily in the shared infrastructure of the open source project to keep the lights on, including having thousands of servers endlessly running millions of tests, responding to hundreds of incoming bugs per day, ensuring the important ones get fixed, and constantly investing in code health to keep the whole project maintainable. This work represents hundreds of millions of US dollars in annual investment just for the maintenance cost before any new feature, innovation, or other business priorities can be addressed. Today, Google is pleased to announce a partnership with the Linux Foundation and the launch of supporters of Chromium-based browsers. The goal of this initiative is to foster a sustainable environment of open source contributions towards the health of the Chromium ecosystem and financially support a community of developers who want to contribute to the project, encouraging widespread support and continued technological progress for Chromium embedders. Now look, let's cut to the chase. Because we can put out this nice corporate PR speak to make things sound really good. Oh, we're doing this to benefit everybody. But let's just be completely honest about why this is happening. And why it didn't happen, let's say 5, 6, maybe 10 years ago, when it would have made just as much sense. Do you remember this story from back in November of 2024? Sell Chrome to end search monopoly, Google told, where the US Department of Justice was pushing for Google to sell Chrome and potentially sell Android, and not only that, block them from getting involved in another browser project for 5 years. That would mean they would have to pull out of the Chromium project, which realistically would not kill the project, because you can't really kill an open source project, especially one that has corporate backing already, but it would take the majority of the wind out of the sails, with, Google doing 94% of the commits last year. Google is rightfully terrified of this coming to pass. They don't want it to happen. They don't even want to acknowledge that it's going to happen. They don't want anything to do with it. They will do everything they can possibly do to make sure this does not happen. Now, with the new administration coming in, it's kind of unclear whether or not this is going to continue to be pursued. There have been some comments suggesting there will be a pullback, but nothing is certain yet. And with how much they've been pushing against Google, look, it's not clear. And if you're Google, you want to make sure that, whoever's going to be involved is not going to take away your browser project and make you basically lose control of it. Combining that with the fact that they already have an existing threat from the EU, not from things that might theoretically happen, but things that already did happen. Back in September, having to pay a $2.7 billion fine over an antitrust case. Now, obviously, to Google, that's not a giant amount of money. They probably don't want to pay it, but Google, they can afford to spend $2.7 billion. However, that doesn't mean this is going to be the stop of this. If they've already done this once, it's very possible they continue pursuing them on more and more and more things, and they could pursue them for the browser as well, and work with the US Department of Justice and try to make that happen as well. This is not a matter of whether you do or don't like the way the EU handles things. This is simply a matter of this being a very active threat to Google, and they do not want it to happen. They don't want anything bad to happen to their cash cow, to anything in their ecosystem. Google is in control of the Chromium project, and with the existence of the supporters of Chromium-based browsers, they do still retain direct control of the Chromium project and of Chromium development. I would be lying, though, if I didn't think this was basically an attempt to take some of the heat off of them and do this as sort of a show of good faith. They're like, hey guys, we have this open development space. We have this open discussion space with the Linux Foundation. See, we're not a monopoly. everybody's allowed to be involved. We're actually like an open standard. And open standards, you know, everybody's involved with it. So please, please, please do not make us sell Chromium. Do not make us sell Chrome. We don't want to see that happen. Honestly, I would not be surprised to see them take this approach with other things if this does seem to be somewhat successful. You might think corporate power is scary. Don't worry. Government power is much, much worse than that. Google, at least yet, doesn't have a military. The government does. So at the end of the day, power wins over money. Now, a lot of power can be bought with money, but, you know, if you have people in place that actually have convictions, at the end of the day, you're going to have to listen to the government, and Google does not want to be forced to do anything that they don't want to do. But what do you think? Do you think they have the best of intentions, or do you agree with me? There's probably some ulterior motive here for why they're doing it, and why they're doing it in a separate organization that is not connected to Google. I'd love to know. So if you liked the video, go like the video. And if you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe to the Brodie, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and just don't trust Google.